welcome to the Ashes to Diamond podcast. And today I'm extremely excited to have the incredibly talented Kate Nankivell on the show. And her business is Tell Your Tale. It's a new startup business, and what they will do is capture your loved one's lifetime of cherished memories in a private audio podcast so that your entire family can enjoy it. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Cara. It's lovely to be here with you today. And let me
No,
turn
I'm
off
looking
other
forward
distracting noises. I'm sorry, I just realized my Outlook's making beeps in the background. Let's make sure that's not doing that.
No, I can't hear anything.
Oh, good. Excellent. It's lovely to be here and a pleasure to be joining you again today. And thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Tell Your Tale.
Oh no, I'm looking forward to it. It sounds really inspirational and interesting. So yeah, tell me how did you get into it?
Well, it really arose through my own experiences of loss in my life. So my father passed away in 2018, and that happened a whole lot faster than we ever expected. And look, that's probably an experience other people can identify with, or have had a shared experience with. So he went from being unwell to it was suddenly that he wasn't going to be with us for much longer, and so we went through a very sped up, unexpected kind of dad's unwell to now actually he's passed away, and then all the things that happen when you lose a dear loved one like that. And look, all of that, the things that happen when someone passes away, there's a lot going on. And I know you are very familiar with the sort of space, I guess, Cara, in terms of your businesses and the things that you do. But one of the things after Dad went that I regretted was that I hadn't recorded his voice. I hadn't recorded his stories. Dad was a great storyteller. He was funny. He had great recall of history. He was really good. If you ever had a question about something, you always could go to Dad. Dad, can you tell me about such and such in World War I or World War II? And he was like, oh yeah, he was really great for that. But he also had great family history. And look, we all love our dads. Well, I hope you do.
Yeah.
I certainly love mine. And I just wish that I'd recorded his voice. I was like, man, I wish I had. And I literally went and did things like I went to the voicemail on my phone, the last message he left me, and I reached out to Spark to see if I could get a copy of that. I went to the voicemail on his own cell phone and sought to get a copy of that just to get something, I became aware of how important that was, and then carry on. So that was 2018. And in the intervening period, my knowledge and experience with podcasting technologies has grown, thanks to a number of different companies. And I've worked on public podcasts. This is audio podcasting, by the way. I've worked on public podcast type offerings and grown that sort of thing within my business. But one of the things I learned about was a thing called private podcasting. So I guess I'll get to that as well. It's a different type of technology, and that technology has enabled me to do something really different in this space. So I can record your loved one's life story in an audio format in such a way that that can be shared with your family in a private space, but literally you can access it on your cell phone, like your iPhone, which is really super handy.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, because as you know, I too have lost my dad, and I don't have anything like that, but every now and again on my phone you get the memories pop up with photos, and it's really heartfelt. I sort of melt going, oh my God, there's Dad.
Yeah, absolutely. So many ways and so many things. There probably isn't a day that goes by still where I don't have some memory of Dad, and then you get those reminders too, like you say, like on your phone. So I want to help my clients who get what I'm doing and think, yeah, that's something we'd like to do in our family. I want to help them not have the experience that I've had. I want to remove that, and I want them to be able to also just have the opportunity to listen to the stories of it's probably the parents of our generation that I'd be talking about too, Cara, like our parents and friends of ours and sort of our demographic who've still got parents who are alive. They are sort of classic people who would be someone who the parent themselves might be keen, or the family of kids go, oh yeah, it'd be really great to get mum or dad's or both of their stories recorded.
That's right, because you're right. It's not until we get older that we then think, oh my gosh, I'd love to ask mum or dad that, or your grandparents or something. Yeah.
Oh, completely. And I know from doing this with my mum, I've learned things that I didn't even know. Like I just found out things about her childhood. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. I had no idea. So that's cool too.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love it. That's really cool. So, what do you see as the unique value of preserving not just the stories, but also the voices of our loved ones through Tell Your Tale?
Well, I think that what I'm offering is something that is different. So there is capturing someone's voice is different from their words. So there are some great offerings out there that will help you to capture someone's life story in writing. And so literally people probably have encountered services like Storyworth. They send an email a week and your mum or dad replies to the email. And I'm all for choose the service that feels right for you and your family. So if you like the idea of a written version, cool. But what happens with the audio version is that literally you get to hear the person's essence. And I guess we can say in a way that's different, I guess, to others who maybe have not lost their mum or dad yet. Being on the other side of that great loss, you have a really sharp appreciation for how much you would love to hear their voice. And imagine being on the other side of that big life experience, that loss, and actually being able to listen to your mum and dad's voice when you're ready to. You might need a little bit of space, but ultimately 6, 12, 18 months down the line, you're going to really treasure that. So you get their voice, you get their essence, you get their humor, you get their whatever approach to life. I mean, some of them might be a bit cynical about some things, or they might have that healthy sense of, I don't know, like a wicked sense of humor or something, but it's just, you get all of that with voice, and that's hard to create by writing down something yourself, probably unless you are a super skilled memoir writer, and that's a whole nother offering as well. So there are memoir writers, that's another thing that people do, but I also have researched those options, and they start quality services sort of 20 and 30,000 for someone to write your memoir. That's a whole different kind of ball game that not everyone's going to probably have budget for, or a path that they may not go down. So I see myself as coming into, this is a new way to record a life story that really hasn't been there before.
No, I think it's fascinating, and I like that, by capturing their voice, because and what I've found, there's times where people will reiterate a story from someone who's not there, and even though you might have been there when the event happened or whatever, and they're relaying the story, it just doesn't quite sound right as if it's from that
Right.
person.
And that's right. In their own words, with their sense of humor, with the timing, with all the intonation, with all the things, right? It's like there's so much in that. And voice is magic when it comes to that.
Oh, absolutely. So, have you got some examples, Kate, in the way in which you would use the narratives and memories that you've captured to help families and connect across generations?
Sure. I guess part of what I would share when it comes to that would be a reflection, and a good example would be when I interviewed my mum. She told me she was born in a small town on the west coast of New Zealand, and she told me how when she was a baby and a toddler, that my grandmother, bless her cotton socks, used to do the washing on a Monday. And so, like, not only me, but my nephew and anybody, other member of our family that listens to this can hear about our grandma or great grandma, depending on who you are. And on a Monday, she did the washing for her family, which is her husband, and 3 young children in the West Coast in the middle of winter. And that was Monday's job. And, in 2024, when we reflect on that and think about whipping along to the old Fisher and Paykel, or lifting the lid, popping in the washing, expecting hot water, having our Persil or whatever, powder you put in, or liquid cleaner that you put into your washing machine, and walking away to do something else while the washing machine does all the work. I was kind of blown away thinking that grandma spent every Monday hand washing, and so that's the sort of, to me, that epitomizes how, when we learn about our history and our family history, then I think of that. My nephew thinks of that. When his children are born, when they hear about that, and they'll even have even more fancy tech, and gosh, who knows, we probably won't even have a cell phone. There'll be some kind of hologram they'll be looking at. But you know what I mean? It's just like, wow. And that was grandma and great grandma. I find that sort of thing amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm only laughing because, dare I say it, I remember learning that at school, that Monday was washing day, because they had to do it all by hand, and they would have to heat up the coppers, and
Yeah, right.
like
What a
you say.
mission, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you weren't doing something else while you did the washing, were you? You were hard work at doing the washing. Yeah. So
Oh,
I think that's something that's a good example of of
Yeah.
informing future or current generations about, the differences that our family members have experienced over generations.
Yeah, yeah, because you're right. They might learn it in a history lesson, but it doesn't really resonate because it doesn't affect them. But yeah, listening to perhaps great grandmother.
Yeah, totally.
That's cool. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I
So,
think so I was just going to say the other thing that I would say is that audio recording, and I think we're going to get onto this shortly as well. The nature of that and the way that we can listen to means, like, imagine going on holiday with your family and you're driving to your holiday destination, and there might be one or two people who live in Auckland. There are a couple. And you drive out of Auckland and you're going to be driving for 2, 3, 5 hours, and you're in the car together. You could listen to grandma's story while you're driving in the car together. That's an experience that you like. There's nothing like that. Let's listen to grandma tell us stories about when she was a kid. And then everyone can get into, oh, did you know that about, I didn't know that. And what was that like? Oh, Dad, what was it like when you were growing up? Can you imagine the conversations that would result?
yes.
I mean, I'm a big fan of playing games in the car as well. We always used to do that when I was a kid, but I think this is a pretty special thing, and that's a nice aspect of the audio private podcast that you can do as well.
Yeah, I like that. That is good. And then, yeah, you're right. It will lead on to other tales. So what exactly is a private podcast or private audio podcast?
Great question, Cara. I'm glad that you've asked that. That's really important that we cover it off. The more people I talk to about this, the more I realize I'm on a mission to educate and inform people about this so they can become aware of what it's about. So there'll be many people who will know what a podcast is, but just to make sure that we're covering that off on our phones, I'm just going to hold that up here. We've got, and this is an iPhone, excuse me. We've got the little purple podcast icon there.
Oh, yes, down the bottom.
On the front, down the bottom. Now, before this technology became available, you couldn't do this, but now you can. So there is a podcast technology, which means I record someone and I grabbed my little mic just so that you know what that would look like. An example of the sort of thing I would use in an interview is this. This is just a little lavalier lapel mic that I would put onto the subject that I was interviewing, just pop it on their jacket or jersey. We record it like that, and then I turn it into what's called a private audio podcast, and this is what happens. I edit it to make sure it's in good shape, and then it gets published through a platform that is a private audio podcast platform. And that means that, let's say you do it for your grandmother or your mother, then at the time that we organize that, I'd say, please give me a list of your family members that you'd like to share this with. And that might give me 40 family members and their email addresses. Once I've published it privately, I send an email to all those people. They have a link in their email and they click on it, and then they can listen to it on the podcast app of their choice. Now, that means on your iPhone, you can listen to that private podcast because you have the private link, and everyone can get their own link so that only the people with the private link can listen. But it means literally you can use the podcast technology on your phone, the podcast app, to listen. So just like you might listen to a podcast that's about, people like all sorts of different things, whether you're into business, whether you're into detective stories, or whether you're into politics, or whether you're into cooking or sewing or jewelry or woodwork, or whatever you're into in terms of podcasts, there's just endless amounts of great podcast stuff out there. Then you can listen to your private audio podcast on that podcast app on your phone. Literally, say if you're an iPhone user, that purple podcast app is all you have to do. What the beauty of that, which is what I was starting to talk to before, it gives you the functionality of a podcast, which means you can listen wherever you can listen to podcasts. So you could be in the kitchen cooking dinner, you could be driving the car, you could be walking the dog. I don't know if you listen and ride your bike car. I don't know if you listen to things or you don't. No, safety first, or I'm down with that as well. But wherever you do like to listen to podcasts, you can listen to your Tell Your Tale recording on a podcast app.
Okay. And so that means it's...
Sorry?
Oh, no, I was going to say, so that means it's quite private and secure. And so...
completely private and secure. Whilst you're listening to it on this app, which is on your phone, it's actually done in such a way that only the people with the link can listen. And I can create unique links for every member of the family. So that means only the people that get a unique link can listen on the app. Does that make sense? It's different from a public podcast.
Yeah.
The public are not going to have access to this. This is just your family.
Great. Because I think that's really important too, isn't it? Because people want to share their, grandmother might want to share her story with her family, but she doesn't want the whole neighborhood to know.
Oh gosh, no. This is the magic of private podcast technology and the platform that it allows you to do that. But one of the other things that's quite cool about it too, because you're using the podcast app, you can listen. Podcast apps allow you to listen at half speed, at regular speed, at 1.5 times the speed, at twice the speed. So if you've got all that functionality, you can pause it, go away, do something else for 4 days, and then come back to it and push play, and you're right at the place where you finished.
Oh,
That's the great one of the great things about podcast technology. If you go away, well, let's say from reading a book and come back to it, you have to find your place. A little bit the same with video as well. If you stop watching a video, you have to come back and find the link. It's very readily available on your phone, which is handy.
wow. Oh, no, that's really cool because you're right. I do listen to podcasts too, and it's annoying sometimes when they cut out halfway, and then you got to try and get back to where you were listening. And it's good too that it's private. Other people can't hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on that, are you able to walk us through sort of the process of how Tell Your Tale works, like from the initial interview through to the final audio podcast product?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it actually starts before the interview as well. So thank you for asking me that question. Someone would make the decision after finding out about Tell Your Tale, and they might have a chat with me as well, and that's all cool. I welcome that. Once they say, well, look, yep, I'd like to go ahead with either the Essential Tale or the Epic Tale package, I would then have a conversation with the person that I'm interviewing, and potentially if it's a son or daughter that's purchasing it for them, to talk through what they would like to cover in the interview. So I have 12 to 13, if you like, chapters of your life that are all pre-prepared in terms of interview structure, so that we can explore areas that are common to all of us, just about all of us, and say, right, well, if you were doing the Essential Tale, you can choose 6 to 7 of those potentially 13 chapters that we can focus upon. Now, what I want to learn through that preparatory conversation is there an area of your life that you particularly want to focus in on or talk about? And that's where people come forward and say, well, look, I had a mad passion for sport. I had a mad passion, I heard someone recently, for motorsport. And so what we need to establish before we go into the interview is what's the structure of the interview? Because if they want to talk a lot about a particular area, then I need to adjust my interview plan so that I'm actually facilitating the kind of conversation and recording that they want. So there's that planning stage. We agree on that. Then I come in, sit with you in your home in a very comfortable manner. You don't need to do your hair or makeup, ladies and gentlemen. I'll come in and bring microphones like this so we can sit there. You could be in your slippers if you want. Whatever your comfy gear is, just sit there. I'll pop that on. I'll have one as well, and then we begin the interview where I'll be recording and taking you through the questions that record your story. Now, depending on which package or service the person chooses, it'll either be a 3-hour interview over a morning, or it could be 2 mornings, depending on if the person chooses the longer package. People are all different, and their reasons for choosing which service they would like to have for their family member are going to be based on a bunch of different things. Like some people just have people do have fascinating lives. I think that's one of the things I've encountered since my creation of this and the conversations I've started to have with people. You go into a retirement village and start talking to people, you'll find all sorts of fascinating people. And you start talking to them about their lives. They've got all sorts of amazing stories to tell. So you kind of need to work out, is this the regular kind of areas that we're going to cover? Or is there some special thing that this person's done that we need to make sure we give time to?
I like that. That was something I was taught very early on, is that everyone's got a story to tell.
Yeah.
And so often I think we can be quite judgmental in that we dismiss someone because we might see them as being perhaps older or different in some way, and we don't really value what their story is.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone, I totally agree. Everyone does have a story worth telling and listening to. And just carrying on the process as this is what we're talking about now. That the gift of giving someone this is amazing, just to have them be listened to have someone listen in such a quality manner. I'm really passionate about listening, and I'm good at it because I've practiced it for over 10 years in my business, and I'm very skilled as an interviewer, but I also just am very passionate about listening in a quality manner. So I guess, just that experience of being listened to for something like 3 to 6 hours is pretty remarkable, and people come away from those sorts of experiences really acknowledging how much they just enjoyed being able to tell their tales. Cool. I really like that. The lovely aspect of what this is about. So after the recording, I will take that and then I will work with team members who actually do the audio editing. So we're taking, let's say, 6 or 7 chapters of your life or 13 chapters of your life. I'm going to edit that with the team members who do that. So we've got audio editing going on. So we've got nicely edited chapters for each area of your life. That then is uploaded to the private podcasting platform. You get a copy on USB. I also do a transcript, which is it's not an edited transcript. We're not trying to turn it into a book here, but you get a transcript also on
yeah.
file. So you've got the private podcast that can be shared with all your family. You've got the recording on the USB. You've got a transcript, and then all of that is provided to you, and to the family members who've perhaps booked it for you or paid for it for you. So we've got the subject, the person who's being interviewed, and we've also potentially got someone who's purchased it for them. It's just the nature of how this will work.
So it's different mediums there, though. If someone might want to read, others might want to listen. I like that.
Well, yeah, you could. I just would emphasize it's not an edited book. Like
Yeah.
to turn something like this into a book, you need a whole lot of other, there's a whole lot of other things involved. But you've got it there as a reference. And look, that also can be something that could be valuable down the track, depending on who is taking responsibility for doing things like when someone sadly does pass, writing a eulogy for someone's funeral. So that, this sort of material is amazingly helpful for that process. I've created eulogies for 2 family members' funerals. It's a lot of work when someone's just passed, and yeah, there's a lot involved in making that happen.
Yeah, you're right, but it's also fascinating hearing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what you're getting out. Yeah, I love that. Oh no, that's awesome. So tell me a bit more, or tell me about the team rather behind Tell Your Tale, and what qualifications and expertise do they bring to this process of turning these life stories into professionally produced audio podcasts?
Sure. So I use contractors who are skilled audio editors so that they can do this type of work. And at the moment, while this is a new startup, I'm using people who are skilled at that as contractors. And then ultimately, I imagine over time, they'll become, I'll need to find people who are more probably full-time resource for the business. But this is, as we've talked about, is quite a startup phase. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Oh no, it's good because and this is it. It's a team as well.
Yeah, well, it's also getting people to do what they're skilled at. Audio editing is something that I have a great regard and respect for. So I want someone who is able to do that professionally for my clients, so we get a great result.
Great. So what makes Tell Your Tale an affordable and efficient solution for families who are looking to preserve their loved ones' legacies?
Sure. Well, I think it's about looking at the various different service options that are available. So we can look at the writing an email version type response, as we've spoken about, where there's those sorts of options. You reply to an email over a year on a weekly basis and you come out with a printed result. Or you could go to the extent of having someone write a memoir, as I spoke about earlier. I see myself sitting more closely to the cost-effective written versions rather than the paying for someone to write a memoir service for you. And that's where I think that fits quite well as the fact that we are doing all the recording and the editing and the preparation. So you've got this accessible and also accessible for now until the future. You can have this for as long as you want.
And yeah, I like that. And I guess also when you're doing an audio interview, someone could touch on a topic and you could delve deeper into that. Whereas if you were emailing questions, it could potentially get missed, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a great flexibility around where you can head where you're on the spot dealing with response as it happens rather than just a static response, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the concept, Kate. I think it's fascinating, and I admire you for doing this.
Thank you.
So following on from that, how do you ensure that the individuality and uniqueness of each person's story is celebrated and captured in a way that transcends time?
Well, I think everybody's story is unique. So it's about literally asking them, facilitating the conversation so they can share their unique story, their unique life experiences. And then the nature of the way the service works and the use of private podcasting, and the audio private podcasting means that family members can share this over the years.
I think sometimes if you're interviewing grandma, she might not even know what a podcast is, in all due respect.
Well, it depends. Yeah, I have a great respect for individual differences. Yeah. I know, for example, my mum is 85. She knows all about podcasting, but I've also spoken with people in her a friend group who aren't so familiar. So
Mm.
just need to take it depending on where the person's at and have a conversation and make sure that if there's anything someone's not familiar with, that I just run them through what that's about. And I've got great stories to help people understand what that looks like too.
It's cool. No, I really do like it. So, in what ways has the experience of creating these podcasts impacted your own life and perspective, on the importance of preserving family stories?
I think it's just solidified my thinking. I
Mm-hmm.
think that going from kind of conceptualizing this or having the idea to conceptualizing it and making it real, it's made me aware of how life is, it's not an endless resource. People aren't around forever. And I think part of the conversations I'm having more and more with people who do see this as something that, it captures their imagination and they feel like it's a fit for them because they're the people I want to work with. Okay, the same services are not for everyone. I'm never someone who says everyone should do this. I'm like, if this feels like it's you, then let's talk about it. Yeah, so I just think being conscious that we're not here forever, and if this is something that feels good, then I think it's a good time to explore it.
I like that because I think you touched on it right at the beginning, Kate, as well, is that if you could hear their voice again, and
Yeah,
that's something that I do quite often hear people will say in conversation, just, one more time type of thing. Yeah.
yeah,
This is a great way to
absolutely.
preserve that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So, how can our listeners get involved with Tell Your Tale and begin the process of preserving their loved ones' stories, their laughter, and their wisdom?
Sure. Probably the easiest way would be to reach out to me via email for anyone watching this. I think that would be easy. So it's kate@tellyourtale.co.nz, and we'll put that in, I'm sure, in
Yeah,
the
in the
links
show
and
notes.
the notes and that sort of thing when you share this. People can also call me, but I'm often in a range of different meetings. So I think probably the email is the best area. They can also go on to the website, the www.tellyourtale.co.nz, which has an area where you can message me with an inquiry. And also on the website, if you check that out, you can then have a look at the brochure, which is downloadable. It talks about the process I work through. It talks about the different service options. So that's a great place to start as well, because it's natural that people who are considering this and making an investment like this just want to know a bit more.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and you'll definitely put those in the show notes so that people can
Hmm.
can get in touch with you. That's great. So, hey, Kate, I'm appreciative of your time. Is there anything else that I haven't asked that you want to share with our
No,
listeners?
no, I really appreciate that you've done this. This has been a great opportunity for me to think about it from this perspective. So thank you for asking all the questions that you have today, Cara, and thank you for having me on your show. I, yeah, I just think I appreciate people considering what this is all about. I appreciate that it's not probably an overnight call for many people. They're probably going to contemplate it because this is important stuff. This is family stuff. This is our parents. This is our grandparents. And it's appropriate that you think about it. Some people have said to me, oh, I should talk about this with my brothers and sisters. It'd be quite cool to do this with mum and dad, in which case they're going to go off and the next time they get together, whether it's physically or on a phone call or on a Zoom call together or whatever, you're like, hey, look, I've seen this thing. It'd be really cool to do for mum or dad. What do you think, guys? There's family decision making involved, and we know how exciting and varied that can be. So I think this is a great adventure for families, and I'm down for the adventure, whatever it looks like. So yeah, that's kind of what else I would add. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I like that because yeah, I immediately think back to my own family. And you're quite right. We all have different dynamics.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
usually one on a
absolutely.
different page to the majority.
Yeah, for sure.
No, that's awesome. Hey, Kate, I really value your time and thank you very much. And this has been fascinating. I've learned so much. It's great.
Thanks, Cara. It's been neat to be here with you today. Have a goodie.
Cool. Thank you.